a brand that anyone in any city would be familiar with. But if you have been to CCD of the last year, chances are you would have seen a difference. Indeed, CCD has evolved from a regular neighborhood coffee shop. A lot has changed. The logo, the menu, the signage, and why people come here. For instance, you'll often see business meetings happening here, giving the attempt at creating the social hub a new meaning. CCD is today trying its best to propagate this mantra with its brand and everything around it.
Once the positioning of the social hub was in place, the task was to bring this to life in the cafe experience. It started with the evolution of the brand identity from the square to the new dialogue box, which symbolizes that Cafe Coffee Day is a catalyst for conversation. It then spills over to the look and feel, a vibrant new look and feel which is carried through on everything, from the wall graphics to even the cup, which now speaks to you. As you started immersing in the positioning, how did you start thinking about translating that into the cafe experience itself? Because I'm sure one of your tasks is to increase the stickiness of cafes and to elevate the experience overall. Have you found that that positioning has been very powerful in driving innovation?
Absolutely. See, once in our minds, all of us have a, what shall I say, shared goal or a shared thought that this brand stands for enabling conversations, enabling meaningful conversations, then that flows. That flows in everything that we do, whether it's about a cup that is being served, in which your coffee is being served, or let's say the tissues that you use inside a cafe, or the actions and activations that we do in and around a cafe. Most of them are around how do we enable this conversation and how do we make this situation in such a way that this conversation is more meaningful, resulting in the consumer staying with us for a little longer and hopefully have that extra cup of tea. So that's been quite a clear ride, and I think the thought has been quite well internalized and everyone's understood what this brand now stands for, and that reflects in the way we behave across functions now.
Interesting. How have consumers come to know that Cafe Coffee Day has changed? Is it when they walk into cafes? Because you're a brand that's built itself using non-conventional media. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about how you've communicated the change and how you are building the brand today?
See, very often when people ask me this question about conventional and non-conventional media, actually these lines are blurring now. Supposing we currently have 1,080 cafes, right? So if I were to look at these 1,080 cafes as 1,080 billboards, then how would you value it? The way it would reflect on your budgetary statement would be very different. And as you know, 60–70% of our cafes are on high streets. So it's actually high street hoardings that we have. So there's no better means or media by which to communicate to the consumer that we have changed other than what we reflect in the billboards, which is our logo or the way the frontage of our stores look. That's one part of it. The second part of it is the fact that we are pretty big in digital space. What I mean by that is we're not a brand that spends a lot of money on any form of media. So even in the digital, our indulgence has been more in the social media space. If I take the example of Facebook, which is perhaps today the largest youth connect in as far as India is concerned, we have about 500,000 fans on Facebook. And this includes the official page, which is about 4.5 lakhs, 450,000. And there are about 60-odd thousand which have been generated by fans on their own. So we have used this means as an effective means of communicating to people the philosophy behind the change, what exactly is the change, and therefore we've been able to constantly hear from people on how they are embracing this change, or are they in line with what we are thinking, and so on and so forth. So that's been an easy way for us to go about it. And like I said, the cafe is the biggest medium, followed by the digital space. Yeah.
While the new positioning resonated strongly with the team, there were still hurdles to cross. Senior management asked all the right tough questions. They wanted to know, will this new positioning give us an ROI? Does it have the ability to improve stickiness in cafes? How will we implement the change? Do we have the wherewithal? All the right questions that the marketing team had to answer before any of this could be approved. While going through this process, I'm sure that perhaps internally all the stakeholders weren't as equally convinced about the need to change. I remember some of the meetings, there was resistance to change. How did you overcome some of those hurdles? What finally prevailed?
Yeah, I think, you know, as like I said, when the brand archetype research came and the insight was that there's a clear gap between where the brand is and where the identity is, I think that was half the work done. So everybody in the top management was pretty convinced that we needed to up-level our identity and keep it in pace with where the brand is today. As far as hurdles are concerned, I don't think I want to call it hurdles as much as the right questions that were asked. And I think the most important question was, what would be the return on investment? And there's a huge investment that's going to go into this entire transformation. Is it going to spur cafe walk-ins? Is it going to increase the consumption of food and beverages? Is it going to lead to consumers spending more time in the cafe? So these are the kind of questions that were asked, and rightfully so, because it was a huge investment that we were going to embark on. But I think at the end of the day, what we did was we took the top management through the first meeting, and they were participated in the first meeting right through to the last meeting. So they actually walked with us and with yourselves into this entire process, and I think they were pretty convinced that this is something that's the need of the hour.
Once the company started implementing the change, it went really fast. After about 350 cafes were flipped over, it was time for a quick dipstick to measure business results from the change and see if any modifications needed to be done before continuing the journey, 70% of which was still left.
Are there any metrics or any results which the company looks at and says, yes, that was a change well worth it?
In terms of results, we actually did a quick dipstick, when we were halfway through the flip process, maybe when we had done about 300 or 350 cafes. We looked at the average residence time of a consumer in a cafe where flip had happened and in a cafe where flip had not happened. Now, whether it was entirely due to the flip or not, I don't know, but I would seem to think it is because of the flip. The residence time actually was higher in cafes where the flip had happened, number one. And when I compared the growth rate, which means the previous year to the current year, the growth in terms of the daily sales and stuff like that, the flipped cafes showed as a clear 15% lead over the non-flipped cafes. So that gave us a lot of confidence saying, okay, this is going to drive us a big way. So that's the only measure I have at this point of time. So we like to believe, and we're pretty sure that it's actually driving growth for us in our way forward.
Cafe Coffee Day is still in the process of transforming all the cafes around the country. Even though the transformation is not fully complete, Cafe Coffee Day is seeing tangible business rewards.
While you're no longer, the company is almost outside now, you're clearly seeing the transformation. What do you think the rewards of all of this have been?
I think business rewards are kicking in now. It takes its own time. But the best part is that the consumers haven't felt alienated, which I think is a very important part of any transformation. They loved the brand earlier, they love it even more now. And we have done some bit of research recently, and I'm told that the post-transformation insights have been great.
As the new brand identity is being rolled out across cafes, CCD is now faced with newer challenges, that of intense competition. Earlier this year, the FMCG giant Hindustan Unilever launched its cafe outlet, Brew World Cafe. Global coffee giant Starbucks also made a formal announcement to enter the Indian market in partnership with Tata Coffee. So what's the new game plan for brand CCD now? Find out after a small break.